Om Namaste Atirajaya Vivekananda Sudaya Satchitasvarupaya Swami Vivekananda. Today we are celebrating the birth anniversary of Swami Vivekananda. Though according to the Indian calendar, it was celebrated all over the world, especially in India, 22nd. But because it was not a weekday, as we normally do, either we celebrate it on the previous weekend or the next weekend. Saturday was the nearest to that Tithi Puja, Janmati. So Swami Vivekananda once wrote a letter to his Guru Bhais because there was a plan to celebrate Sri Ramakrishna's birthday in Dakshineshwar, because in those days Belur Math was not there. And the first celebration took place in Dakshineshwar. Some enthusiastic devotees of Sri Ramakrishna and also some monastic brother disciples, they decided to gather together and celebrate the birth anniversary of Sri Ramakrishna. Of course, that was according to the Indian calendar, not the English calendar, which is the practice in India. So Swamiji, in that letter, he writes to his disciples, giving a plan of how celebration should be organized. Especially, not only Sri Ramakrishna celebrations, he knew in future there will be celebrations in the name of at least Srima Sharda Devi and all the direct monastic disciples, and also other prophets, Janmashtami, Durga Puja. So he gave some basic guidelines, and he could do well to remember these guidelines for the benefit, for our benefit, to just go through those guidelines. Because he had a specific plan in mind. He was looking at the future, several centuries, because he knew the message of Sri Ramakrishna, in his own words he said, it will continue to spread, not only in India but all over the world, without any impediment for more than 1500 years. So at least for 1500 years. Of course, it will continue to spread beyond that. But the impact of Sri Ramakrishna's life and message, he knew, is not just for a century or some centuries, it is for 15 centuries at least. So he knew things will change, society will change as it has changed. You see, over the last 150 years, society has changed drastically. So he knew, just as society makes changes to suit the needs of the age, religion also makes changes. It's a natural order which takes place. And incarnations come specifically for that particular reason. That the same eternal message has to be given in a different language, suiting the needs of that particular age. And the great prophets, who according to Swami Vivekananda, come every 500 years. That's an approximation he made. Every 500 years, there's a cycle and a new message, not a new message, but a new interpretation of the same eternal message in different geographical locations will be spread according to the needs of that particular age, that particular geographical location. But when it comes to Sri Ramakrishna, when it comes to the great prophets, they don't come for a particular geographical location. This is one thing which he emphasized again and again. That's the reason why he spent the last 10 years of his life uh, practically starving himself and working himself to death. That's what he writes when he came to England, especially when he was planning that some of his successors should come here. So Abhedananda and Shraddhananda were called, and in a house which is not very far from this place in Pinckney's Green, he made a prophetic utterance. He said, this time it is going to be very tough. This means for him, because he knew his life was short. And you all know he passed away before he could even complete 40 years. And but still, the last 8 or 9 years, you see so much of hectic activity in the life of Swami Vivekananda. Because he was in a hurry, not only to give the message, but to ensure that the message remains undiluted for 1500 years. So he could see into the future. We could see us. We are very near the that event. It's hardly 125, 128 years since he came to England. So compared to 1500 years, we are very near the period when he visited and he had his ideas. So they are yet to unfold. But they will be unfolding slowly because it will take time, maybe 500 years, as he said. It takes a lot of time. In case of Buddha, after 500 years of his passing away, the first council met to decide what are the real teachings of Buddha. So you can imagine if this movement does not have enough guidelines. The founder of the movement, that is Swami Vivekananda, of course, Sri Ramakrishna himself initiated the Ramakrishna movement. But the founders of the movement think about the next 1500 years, 2000 years. They know how society will change with their prophetic vision, as we'll see when we read some of the nice quotations were read since morning, and I wish everybody and I hope that everybody has listened to them very carefully because they are important. They are all quotations taken from Swami Vivekananda, especially about the mind, the powers of the mind. And he knew that human mind will continue to change. I should not say it will continue to develop because our idea of development is totally different. The spiritual idea of development, as Swamiji defined it, is totally different. So we cannot say our minds are developed. They may be more skilled than our ancestors. They may do many more tasks, much more in a much more better way. But that doesn't mean that we have better minds, that we are able to control our minds. We have less jealousy, we have less anger. We cannot say the same thing about the mind. So when we say that society has developed, we just can say that materially the social society has perhaps developed. But even that we cannot say, seeing all the wars and other things, so much destruction going around. We cannot even say civilization has developed. You may say when this technology was not there, were people not happy? Were they not living good lives? So it would be wrong to just pass a judgment saying that we belong to a developed age, a scientific age, just because we can do some things better than our ancestors. But we fail in many respects. Our human relations are definitely not as good as our ancestors had. They could live in a joint family, especially in India, very peacefully without quarrels, and even if the quarrels were there, it was within the family. But now you see, in spite of all the advancement of the in science and technology and other fields of education, it's doubtful if man is really more educated than what he was, say, 150 years ago when Sri Ramakrishna came. So you have to be very cautious when we say development, all these words. that India is developing or such and such a country's number 3, number 4 development has taken place. But according to Swami Vivekananda, civilization is a progress, the development of civilization takes place only when there is a progressive reading of spirit into matter. This is a very difficult thing to understand. That is what we will discuss today on this auspicious day. Now coming to the format which I was discussing, what Swamiji wanted on birthdays, especially to begin with, it was Ramakrishna's birthday celebration. So it was very keen that should be a proper balance. Having known the history of celebrations and the way things are celebrated in India, it was specifically for in the Indian context, he said, but it can be applied in the Western context also, because now a lot of Indians are all over the world. Specifically, he knew there are certain things which he pointed out which led to the downfall of India. And among other things, one was, of course, superstition and ignorance of the real import of the scriptures, for which Sri Ramakrishna had to incarnate. That's one of the main reasons he came to this world, to show where is the true spirit of religion. And he rescued it. He rescued it from the encrustations of centuries. So many things had happened in India, though we were claiming that we were a highly religious country, we cannot say that we continue to be spiritual. So, to revive that spirituality, Sri Ramakrishna came. There was enough of religion in India, not only Hinduism, so many new religions. Every religion who wanted to come to India was allowed to come. There was no opposition at all. Muslims could come, Christians could come. Everybody could come. Parsis, where they were driven out from their homeland, even they could come. The Jews could come. So religion was not a problem. There were enough religions and enough sects within Hinduism. This is the genius of Vivekananda, that he pointed out that we were never short of religious ideas. And that is why when the young Bengal, as he used to call them, when the young Bengal who was educated in Western ways started criticizing religion for our downfall, he was very particular to point out, don't make that mistake. It's not religion that is responsible for India's downfall. In fact, India's glory was only because of religion, but not the religion that is practiced today. It was the spirituality of the Indian race that has saved not only Indian civilization, but wherever it has gone, wherever it went, it has saved those civilizations, including, and he warned Europe that it is sitting on the top of a volcano and will burst unless Europe manages to spiritualize itself. Not that Europe did not have religion, but science and technology was developing so fast that they started disbelieving in the power of religion to change humanity. So one of the greatest contribution was of Swami Vivekananda was to point out to the Western people, and also more importantly to the Indian people, the so-called Orthodox Indian people, that religion and spirituality very often do not go together. We may be very religious, but we may not be spiritual. And when he says civilization progresses, when we read more of spirit into matter, we come to a very important discussion on the mind. What is the mind? Since morning, since 9 o'clock, I was listening. So many things about the mind which have been nicely classified were read. I don't know how many of you followed the trend of thought which was being read. First, what is the mind? What does it do? Why is it important to control the mind? In fact, mind has been given so much of importance. If you see the concordance to the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. There are several pages. All I did was collect all those and type it here. And that is what we were reading. In fact, he says it is the link, mind is the link between the spirit, the soul, and the body. That is what he says. Mind is merely a instrument, fine instrument, through which the soul, the master, acts on the body. It may appear to be a very simple definition, but without this definition, all our either the functions of our body or the functions of our mind and the functions, of course, our spiritual progress will all come to zero. So it is the mind which is responsible for everything that we do, physically, mentally, or spiritually. It is a link. So that is why he gave so much of importance. And he also said the greatest science, mind you, he says he knew of all the scientific discoveries that were taking place, and people were uh, uh, wondering how science and technology has changed, even during his time. Now it has changed much more, but even during his time, science was considered to be a miracle of the modern mind. Even then, he says, in England, he said, the greatest science, therefore, is the science of the mind, the science of psychology. So that is why we are focusing on that. But before that, again, I am coming back to the methodology or the guidelines that he gave, how celebrations should be celebrated, because that is an occasion, at least once in a year, even if we don't are not regular practitioners, at least once in a year we make it a point. That's why we have so many celebrations. Some people criticize India. You have so many celebrations. You have so many pujas, so many holidays. That's why you are not making progress. That's one of the arguments given against Indian culture, that there are so many pujas, so many celebrations. In a way, it is correct, but at the same time, you have to remember that most of these pujas and celebrations were intended to remind you of your spiritual nature, to read more spirit into matter. Because without that, there is no civilization. But unfortunately, the celebrations, instead of aiding us or helping us to find out our true spiritual nature, it is associated more with merriment and more of socializing. Because that is a sanctified socializing which all human beings can do. And that is why they fight. They want holidays for, they just want to relax. They're not keen to understand the significance of Janmashtami or the Durga Puja or all the pujas. They are only happy because they get holidays. I'm not saying all, but many of them, so that they can either go on holidays, do a little more socializing in the name of God. Because otherwise, socializing becomes difficult. The tasks of daily tasks, it's so much of drudgery. And we need some kind of relaxation from that. But there are these weekends where we can socialize. But these celebrations are not meant for that. That was Swami Vivekananda's particular reason why that's the particular reason why he wrote to his Guru Bhais, who were all spiritual people. They definitely knew. He was not talking to them. He was not guiding them. He was guiding us, or maybe people who will come 200 years later. He knew that this very purpose of celebration was not being observed in India for centuries, and that is why there was so much of poverty, so much of suffering. And the common man, that's why he said first bread and then religion. That doesn't mean he criticizes religion. He said, you are not getting bread because you are not practicing your religion properly. Religion has been used to not for spiritual advancement, because the overponderance of these celebrations in India, so many celebrations, without understanding the true spirit and the true meaning of why we should celebrate. Does it make us more introvert? Does it make us more more conscious of our spiritual nature? Does it make us more meditative? Does it help us to look at our minds to see if our minds have changed from the previous celebration to this celebration? That is the purpose. Every year we celebrate. We may say, I have attended this mela, that mela, and for 25 years I am attending. But in 25 years, every year, the mind which is to be transformed, according to Swami Vivekananda, that is the greatest science. How much of that we have learned and how much it has transformed us as human beings, as spiritual aspirants, and also as human beings. And that is how he knew civilization will change. So he never was against. In fact, he started Durga Puja in Belur Math. But at the same time, he gave these guidelines that there should be a balance between rituals, spiritual discussions. Even today, if you will go to Belur Math, though it is very difficult to manage the crowd that is there, they still have so many different. I was wondering, so many different broadcasts. Somebody is reading in Oriya, somebody is reading in Bengali, somebody, because there is a huge crowd of so many languages, Tamil, Telugu. Somebody is reading gospel in one corner because the Belur Math grounds, if you have seen, it is so vast that if you announce or if there are small pandals on celebration day, you will see there's some reading going on in a language where people of that language can go and listen. This was Swamiji's idea, that which of course it is difficult to practice now because of the crowd, but that was his original intention. He said, try to have as many groups as possible and let them gather to understand what Sri Ramakrishna's message is. Just don't celebrate his birthday. He knew what will happen ultimately. So he gave this idea, and not only that, he wrote a booklet, small booklet, Hinduism or and Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna or Hindu Dharma. And he said, you see that this booklet goes to every hand and they read it. To ensure that they read it, he said, don't give it free. Otherwise, they'll just throw it in the dustbin because they had their celebration is over now. Where to carry all these things? So he said, no, charge them. You see how meticulous he was. He said, charge them. Let them pay for it so that they read it. He was so practical when it comes to organizing these celebrations. And he did this because he knew in those days the celebrations and the people who, the pujaris and the direct disciples, they were full of spiritual fervor. It was not for them. Definitely it was not for them. He doesn't have to tell Ramakrishna how to do puja. He doesn't have to tell Shardananji and all others who were stalwarts. They knew because they were lived with the master. So they knew the essential, the core idea behind religious rituals and also the spirit behind the religious practices. But he wrote it for us, wrote it for future century, future generations. Because he saw, in his own words, he saw the degradation of Buddhism. After 500 years, they had to gather together and tell now enough is enough. We have totally distorted the original message of our master. So a great gathering was convened where some of the serious aspirants, serious practitioners of Buddhism had to come together to find out which are the essential teachings of Buddha. Because in the name of Buddhism, in the name of Buddha's essential teachings, many other things had slowly come. It's natural. It's natural. So that is why he was warning. You go back to the Vedas, go back to the Upanishads, let there be reading, let there be. That's why we change the format a little. Normally we don't have this, so the puja had to be curtailed a little bit. And there will be another session. That was also done intentionally because everybody can sit comfortably now on the chairs because most of us are used to chairs, cannot sit below because we are not used to it. There's nothing wrong in that, sitting on chairs. But for that reason, we have to divide this into two. There will be a puja again. This is a new experiment we are trying. Of course, it was done earlier also. So we'll have a puja again for the second group who can come and nicely sit and not sit in the room next and watch the thing virtually. They should be able to participate. And still there should not be overcrowding, because you know how flu and other things are. Many of our, at least 20 people have written that they cannot come because of fever and flu and other things. Because we had mentioned, don't give it to others. You make their life miserable. So taking into consideration all these things, we decided we can split it this way. And there shall be element of singing. There was some very nice reading, which is more important or equally important as reading, because many times the essence of the song is lost if we focus more on the musical part of it. So that's why Swami Vivekananda was very particular. He introduced the singing of Drupad, because Drupad is a very slow type of, it's sung in a very slow tempo. And the mind gets time to understand what that singer is singing. He said the khayal and other things have totally destroyed Indian music. He used some very harsh words. Because in the classical tradition of alien traditions, of course we meant the Mughals, they came and they converted the sacred science of Drupad, which was used in our Kirtan. Some of the Vallabha Sampradayas, they still stick to the Drupad style of music. They call it Haveli Sangeet. The reason why he was insisting on Drupad, he was a musician himself, was that it is sung in a very slow tempo and the human mind gets time to understand what the person is singing. It's not the musical talent or that we can do in other events. We can have a musical program exclusively or a social program where music can be the musical talents. That's also very good. We have to do that. Dance, music, art, culture, all those things have their own space in our society. But when it comes to spiritual music, he was very particular. That is why today, or on Belur Mutt, you will find Drupad is sung. They do it as a tradition. Because Swamiji liked Drupad, we have to sing Drupad music. But the idea behind that was that in that Drupad music, which he said is the best form of music, in fact, there is a small book where Swamiji's thoughts on music have been compiled. There he says this ancient form of Drupad, when it was combined with the tradition of Kirtan, the Kirtan tradition of the spiritual tradition of Kirtan, it gave the highest music, highest possible music. But unfortunately, because of the demands of the age and because of foreign invasion, the other forms of music, khayal, thumri and all those things, he has discussed in great detail. So today, even if you don't get Drupad singers, Belur Mutt somehow manages to get a Drupad singer to come and sing in Swamiji's room, even Swamiji's ancestral house. This Drupad singing is there, but it is just so difficult to get these singers. It was not because he was fond of Drupad, he knew that while you are singing, the lyrics which are there, the Drupad music is meant for meditation. And he said only calm and meditative minds will really enjoy that music. And that's why it is difficult to learn, because we cannot control our minds. So finally, it boils down to the control of the mind. So since morning, so many things about the mind were being read. I hope you have listened. So there he mentions, it comes in the context of music also. So he has given guidelines how celebration should be done. In such a vast crowd as Belur Mutt, he still wanted different areas in different languages. Some reading is going on. Now it is done as a ritual. I doubt if people sit and listen. There may be people who do not know Bengali, they may be listening to Oriya. I have seen brahmacharis from training center are given the duty. Oriya brahmachari will read the gospel in Oriya, because it's Thakur's birthday. Somebody will read Marathi, Gujarati, because it's a cosmopolitan town. city, Calcutta. So you will find, though there is a small gathering there, but most of the people are not interested. Though it is given in their own language, still they are wandering here and there because the very purpose with which Swamiji started, it is done because it is a tradition. And I was also wondering that some brahmachari, that poor brahmachari is sitting and going on reading, nobody is listening to him. So he also gets a little demoralized. I am reading with so much of sincerity, and the whole crowd is somewhere else, coming to do something else. So that is why Swamiji knew this, though he knew it will be very difficult for an unruly crowd to get the maximum out of these birthday celebrations, because we have unruly minds. So the main purpose he knew was ultimately it boils down to training of our minds, which he says, according to him, the greatest science is the science of the mind. So every celebration or every activity, all is Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, if you see. And that is why the only book he wrote was Raj Yoga. All the others were talks which have been compiled into the other three yogas. But he decided, before I leave the West, I have to leave a book which is the science of all sciences, which is the king of all sciences, the science of psychology, science of the mind. So at least he said, because he was in a hurry, he knew he would not live long. So before he left, he asked Tardy and asked his Western disciples to somehow fund his project and wrote this book. This was a book dictated by him, and he saw that it was published before he died. So much of importance he gave to the science of the mind, the science of psychology, as he says. So, because he knew mind is the only instrument which links us, which links our body, our activities, our attitudes, everything comes from the mind, which is our connection with our soul. So if the mind is not taken care of, that connection is lost, body will follow one path and the soul, unfortunately, will be doomed. So the spirit, the reading of spirit over matter, he said, will give rise to a spiritual civilization. And he said every civilization has to follow this. Jesus did it. He very boldly declared that spirit only survives. That's why he didn't even care when his body was crucified. So there is a progressive reading giving more and more importance to the spirit than the body. And this only our mind can do. Because we do not even know what our spirit is. We say we are spiritual, we want to be spiritual. But what is the spirit? We do not know. It is only through the mind, when we develop the mind, when we use all our activities, including our celebrations, for the development of the mind, that we understand what the spirit is. We get a hint at least. And this is our goal, at least before we die, to know what that spirit is. If we know it fully, then we will be Christ, we will be Buddhas. But even otherwise, the attempt to see more of spirit and try to understand more of spirit than matter is the very goal of all our spiritual life. And that is the goal of all our celebrations. Not only celebrations, our day-to-day activities. So if our activities are conforming to this effort of seeing more of spirit into matter, whether you are singing, whether you are reading, whether you are playing, or whether you are doing any other activity, cooking and so many activities the body does. So that Ichha Shakti, the Ichha Shakti which is necessary to convert our thoughts into actions, our body does. But to ensure that that willpower is trained properly so that it does what it wants to do, or it does what should be done according to the scriptural guidance. That is the very purpose of Swami Vivekananda saying this, that the mind, or the greatest science, is the science of the mind. He has said it in many places. I'm just reading, few things were being read in the morning. So I wished that you have definitely heard it with a lot of attention, but in the next session when we will continue, my request would be that you listen to that properly. And even our songs, if you see all our songs, as I am coming back to music now, because that is another part of the celebration. There is one ritualistic part which is training the Ichha Shakti, or the what does a pujari do? To sit for 1 hour, 2 hours, doing everything in a systematic manner. We have lost the faculty of doing everything systematically. So these rituals, they enable the mind, or they enable to train the mind. Even puja is a training of the mind to do things in a particular way. That's why when you make some mistake in puja, the seniors in Belur Math, they will shout at you, oh, this is not done. It's not because anything will happen or Thakur will get angry or something like that. No, it is for your own mind. If you cannot focus on what you are doing, then how can you do other things well? Your other tasks which you do in life. We don't do it properly because our mind is not trained. So even this puja is meant to help us to increase our willpower and focus our mind on the action that you are doing. That's why they say while you are doing puja, you don't disturb it. It's considered to be the most sacred thing. That is true, provided that attitude is there. It's not just a ritual we have to do to please Thakur. Thakur can be pleased even without puja. Even just by prayer, you can please him. Even sitting in solitude, he'll be more happy if you meditate in your heart. It's for our mental training that this puja is introduced. But we have to understand that and see that every action that we do, and celebration gives us an opportunity to do puja, to participate through puja, which is important, to participate in singing, to understanding the meaning of what we are singing. And also, as I said, Swamiji said, the science of Drupad, it has to be revived, and that is why we have this Drupad singing, because it is a music which is slow, which you cannot hurry. It starts with a very slow tempo. You have to give so much of importance to the notes. There also the mind is involved. So that's why he says, somebody asked him why Drupad is not being popular, becoming popular. It is khayal music. Because for a restless mind, khayal is better. And the pop music is still better because it's faster, and it just helps the chaos. It synchronizes with the chaos in our mind. So we feel, oh, it's something which is which my mind can enjoy, it can understand. So I don't care for this slow music. So that's why Swamiji said that is why because our minds do not appreciate it, because they are not steady, they are not concentrated, we like these faster forms of music. And in fact, that's why on celebrations, as I told you, we still sincerely practice, follow that. No matter how far that singer is, somehow one Drupad singer is brought, at least on Swamiji's birthday, and is given a chance to sing in Swamiji's ancestral house. Now, in many places, we have started this tradition. It should be done in all the centers, but it is difficult to get, very rare to get Drupad singers. But anyway, that is the musical part of the celebration. Then we have the intellectual part. But everything, if you see, focuses or revolves around the mind. That is why he left this country after writing Raj Yoga, which is about the mind. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. That is why when we speak of Swami, it's not that Holy Mother did not emphasize that. Thakur and Holy Mother also emphasized the same thing. But it was Swamiji who put it in a very scientific way. A book which was almost lost. We do not now, Patanjali has become so famous. But it was Swami Vivekananda's commentary on it that revived this great book. Otherwise, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, they were not so popular. In fact, there is a book which says, a book written by Claude Allen Stark. He says the greatest gift of Swami Vivekananda to the Western world is yoga. Now people are doing all sorts of yoga and spreading it all over the world. It has become popular, but The first person who introduced the science of yoga, Vedanta was there. Upanishads were there. They had gone to German universities and everywhere Indian philosophy was studied. But this obscure looking book, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Swamiji said, no, before I leave this country, instead, if I was just reading Swami Vivekananda in England and continental Europe, he was just, study was very keen to translate the Narada Bhakti Sutras. But he was just shouting at them to get this book published. In fact, I was reading some of the conversations that took place. He was so restless, he knew he'll die anytime. And these people were quarreling, the American devotees and the English devotees, who will publish and who will get the rights of Rajo. He said, do something. Just don't go. And they were waiting. Yesterday only I was reading. William James, the famous, they thought that if you don't publish William James's foreword, nobody will buy this book. They were thinking on such trivial things. And Swamiji gets irritated. He says, you're just quarreling, time is going. He knew his time was short. He said, just publish it. If he doesn't give the foreword, they had requested William James to, because they knew that if he writes a foreword, the Western people will perhaps appreciate it more. But he was not in a mood to do that. He said, I don't have time, and don't waste your time and don't give me excuses, there's no money, just publish it. So that shows how much importance he gave to this Raj Yoga. He knew what will ultimately matter in spiritual life. Whether it is celebration, whether it is our day-to-day activities, whether it is our relationship with others, our attitudes, whatever we do in life, if the main person is the mind. Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayo. Whether you want to be bound or whether you want to suffer or whether you want to be happy and whether you want to be free, it is the mind which will decide. In fact, that is why Buddha did not discuss anything about God or philosophy or theosophy. He just went straight to the problem, that is the mind. As you think, so you become. When so much of importance is given to the mind, Swami Vivekananda believed that we should take every opportunity, every moment in our life to see how our mind behaves, how it can be trained, it can be made to behave better. Because it is the senses, that is why in the Vedanta, in some traditions of Vedanta, mind is known as the 11th sense. They talk of 11 gates. We think we have only 10 indriyas, 5 gyanendriyas, 5 karmendriyas. All those things, they are senses. They are important, no doubt. They are definitely important. Because without many things will be, a blind person will miss many things of this world. If he cannot hear, he will miss another, he will be at a loss, huge loss. But if there is no mind which is attached to each of these senses to give validity to our sense experience, the way we see the world, the way we interact with the world, the way we react with the world, because it is not just what we see, but how we react which matters. It can create or destroy a relationship or an attitude. How you react. You may see the same thing, everybody may see the same thing, but how you react will determine your future. So control of reactions, which is the domain of yoga, becomes so important. So Swamiji, that's why he says, unless you know what this mind is, so that's why we have this reading, which will continue in the second session also. What is the mind? And all the questions about the mind have been classified. Of course, I used the that 4 volumes. You will get concordance. The concordance where somebody has painstakingly classified all teaching. So if you want to know anything about the mind, you go to that concordance in the M section and see. I was surprised the maximum number of pages deal with the mind. That means out of the 10 volumes, the 9 volumes that have been published, so much of importance is given to the mind. Whether he talks on Bhakti Yoga, whether he talks in Raj Yoga, Without the mind, there is no yoga, no life. That is why it is the king of sciences, and that is the most neglected science which we teach in our educational system. We teach skills, but we don't teach the skills of the mind, how the mind can be skillful. But that skill is not knowing the mind or knowing what it does, what it can do. The science of the mind means what it is capable of, what it can do, what it cannot do, and how it can harm us, how it can spoil our whole life, and how it can elevate our life. All these things belong to the science of Raj Yoga. That is why he gave so much of importance. And as I said, because we do not want to talk of the historical aspects and other things of Swami Vivekananda. There are so many times we have spoken about this. This time I'm focusing only on this. And since morning our reading was about the mind only and education, true education will be, if we get a chance, we'll speak something about true education because there also the mind is involved. Without the mind, there is no education. But how we train the mind? Do we train the mind just to get some skill sets and get some good job? It will be definitely one of the trainings of the mind that is needed. So the skill sets are necessary, but these are skill sets which enable you to work. It will help the body definitely to get a good job, means to live a comfortable life with all the facilities. That is also needed. You can't be ignorant and uh, live a peaceful life. But at the same time, that is only part of the mental function. Willpower is 1/3 of our concern. So education is training of the mind so that our will increases and we get more and more skills. What you do if by continuously reading certain things or typing certain things or working on a computer, you are increasing your skills. So it requires tremendous willpower to go after a thing. Even a music, if somebody wants to learn music, 10 years of hard labor, then he can generate or produce some good music. You can't just take a harmonium and sing. So this development of the will is a skill. That is only 1/3. Swami Vivekananda is very particular. That is 1/3 of the real possibilities that we can explore of mind control. What about emotions? We may be highly skilled, but we may be emotionally not trained to handle different situations. We get angry at the smallest pretext. We cannot get along well with others. There are so many issues emotional imbalance can create. So that is also 1/3 of our problems. 1/3 of the problems of the mind are because we have not trained our emotion. If education does that, or if religion does that, if the retreat does that, if our celebrations do that, then it is good, according to Swamiji. But if they don't do it, then only one skill will be developed. Maybe that skill is also necessary, the development of the will. I have seen in celebrations people working so hard, they don't even bother to take rest. That's good. It's in helping to develop their willpower. But that is 1/3. That's why you will find many people, they enjoy doing work because that is what they understand. That aspect of the mind they understand because they are skilled people and they want skills. So they just, if you tell them just sit and try to practice bhakti and develop your emotional part of your, they will not understand it. They'll say, what is there? What is there in these songs? Why should I do japa? Why should I sing this devotional songs and develop my emotion? Because those celebrations give you an opportunity to develop your emotional side as well. It's not just the work that we do. That's why we'll find in Belur Math and all this, there are some volunteers who are excellent volunteers. They can work 24 hours for days together without sleeping. But still, Swami Vivekananda wanted that even they should get some kind of emotional, they should develop their emotional skills and also thinking skills, the rational skills, which is missing from religion. That's why it becomes superstition. We are doing things not knowing why we are doing it. We do puja, we do uh, cooking, we do all sorts of things, activities. Will is perfect. Will is doing its job. But the thought behind it, the attitude behind it, the rationale behind it, which comes from Gyan Yoga, is missing. Or the feeling behind it, the feeling, that is Bhakti Yoga, the emotional balance that has to be there to make these activities fruitful. Otherwise, after doing all these activities, if one gets angry and one gets upset, that means the emotional part has been sacrificed at the cost of the will, for development of the will. So Swami Vivekananda's four yoga, the harmony of four yogas, says that Raj Yoga enables you, it's the king of sciences because it enables you to take care of the rational part of the mind, thinking. It takes care of feeling, that is through bhakti, and it takes care of your willpower, which enables you to do activity perfectly. That is the science behind puja. Because that is the only activity, or maybe out of fear, we do it very carefully. We don't do it haphazardly. Whereas other things we may do haphazardly, sweeping and other things. Okay, it doesn't really matter. But here we think Thakur is sitting with a stick in his hand, and if we make any mistake, oh, what will happen to me? Out of fear at least. But that's not the right attitude. But at least the skill sets, the skill, the willing, the part of that. That's why 4 hours, 5 hours. I saw Swami Shantatmananji, even at this age, sitting and doing Durga Puja for 5 hours, sitting non-stop. Never possible for many of us. So that is developing the willpower, but it has to be supported by bhakti, the emotional development of our emotional faculty and also of our thinking capacity. And just see that our religion or whatever we do in life, not just the celebration, anything that we do in life doesn't fall into the category of superstition. We do it in a rational way, think and do it properly. Don't let our emotions get the better of us. Do everything in a very systematic way and also do it perfectly and develop a skill set. So, all the three, that is the ideal that we expect these celebrations of, give us an opportunity to hone our skills or to develop our skills in all the three fields. That is why there is an element of bhakti, singing, there is an element of puja, willpower, that is meditation, Raj Yoga, meditation. Then we have readings when thinking. We have some reading which enables us to use our brains at least when we are attending the celebration. Throughout the whole year, even if we don't think of Swami Vivekananda the other day, we may be very busy. But still, at least on this day, we think of Swami. We try to think Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. We try to meditate. All the things happen on this day, and that's why we take time off and attend these functions. If we fulfill these three conditions, the guidelines that Swamiji gave for the celebration will be fulfilling all of those and making the celebration a great success. So in the next session, as I told you, we have deliberately divided it into two, so that it will enable you to sit nicely on chairs, and there will be same puja which we did, and this is the model which we will follow because of many other reasons also. You might have seen we have given enough space. We have been given guidelines. There was a training which, in fact, Swami Shivarupananda was supposed to do the fire drill before this. It is mandatory, and we have committed to the insurance people that will do it. Many people in the offices they do. Somebody is responsible for that. So the fire exits, everything, and then the spaces, the capacity of each hall, it matters. It at least in this country it matters. So we have to abide by those rules. They are for our benefit, not for, and too much of overcrowding, as I said, with people coming with even a slight infection may just give it to everyone. So that is the reason we don't mind doing. I don't mind giving two talks. The pujari also doesn't mind. Instead of doing one long puja, we can do the same puja again. So they get a little of puja, they get a little of singing, they get a little of reading, and ultimately they also get to listen. And so all the things that a celebration should do. And I'll conclude because we started a few minutes late. I'll take a few more minutes, then we'll have Bhogarati. So this is the plan we are going to follow because we want the celebration to give, as Swamiji wanted, a harmony of all yogas. That's the main idea. And one of the main things that he wanted us to do, as I said, he wrote this Raj Yoga. The only book he wrote was to train the mind. If that is the main purpose, whether it is through thinking, rational thinking, through the power of bhakti, bhajans, devotional songs, provided you understand the meaning of those songs, and also through the duties that you do, the seva that you do. There are so many people working behind the scene now. They are also practicing spirituality. Somebody is looking after the car parking. Somebody is looking after the cooking. So all of them are contributing in their own way. So all the three faculties, thinking, feeling, and willing. So the skills, if you offer to God, you may be good at doing certain things. You do it and offer it, but there is an element of bhakti. You do it with devotion. Then you can reap the benefit of that. Then it enhances you spiritually. So that's the reason we have divided this into two, as I told you. The second session will continue from where we left, so that you get some time to think. And this interval also you try to think what we discussed and see how we can take it forward. Of course, many of you will not be in the second session, but those who come for the second session, to ensure that they don't miss the puja, we have puja again, and then the talk from 5 to 6, followed by Bhogarti and Prasad. Same celebration. It will be, and this will be the way we will celebrate it on all the days. For several reasons, as I told you, I don't want to repeat that. So all these efforts that we are doing is to enable to get, as I said, the Swamiji's guidelines. I try to put it on the WhatsApp because the first celebration of Sri Ramakrishna, he was very particular. He knew we have to start from day one. Otherwise, he knew after 200 years, 300 years, what the devotees will do. So he gave the guidelines, though he was not present, it was in Dakshineshwar. He even sent a booklet which has to be read and then given the soul to the devotees. And then he gave the guidelines, what is to be done, what are the things that should form part of the celebration, because he knew it should not go in vain. Celebration should not go in vain. It has to help us to develop our minds, develop our thinking, our feeling, and willing, that is willpower, by uh, using our skills to serve the Lord. So that is, so now I'll conclude. We'll, just before Bhogarati, we will again have a session where there will be singing, Shivanam Sankirtan, I think Uma will do. So that is part of our, so this was, because we consider Swami Vivekananda as an incarnation of Shiva, Shiva Swarupa. So Shivanam Sankirtan and some other songs, alternating, and few reading on the concept of mind. We'll continue from where we left. So we'll Om Shanti Shanti.